Hey, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm going to give a talk on zero trust AI ransomware defense and reinventing risk management. So we have an era where it's evolving with ransomware faster than defense organizations. We have to rethink our approach and we're going to learn how to look at the different kind of data sets and data governance to transform how ransomware and defense to protect our intellectual property. So I'm going to try to give you, because it's only 10 minutes, some real world case studies, threat intelligence, and current data on attacks and the costs. So let's try to get through what ransomware kill chain. And obviously, he just talked about the AI bots using malicious AI bots. So we'll get through all of it. But I'm going to try to help you understand how you could protect your data for the most part. So hopefully, we don't get to the ransomware in general. So this isn't going to just be about firewalls and backups and boundaries. We're going to talk about resilience, the human aspect of the looped in system, and adapt real time. So the key topics are ransomware trends, the role of AI in early threat detection and deception, zero trust, which is my favorite topic, the principles that will help us mitigate ransomware, and I'm going to give you good case studies so we can learn from other people's mistakes. So the first part about ransomware is that it has changed. So at first, when people would get in your ransomware system, it would take 6 months. They would wait to see what you're doing. Now they immediately get into your ransom. So we're going to begin with some numbers. Global ransom cost in 2024 was over $30 billion. The average downtime after the attack was 22 days. 66% of the victims were hit again within a year. So what are we seeing? We're seeing a rise of ransom as a service, double, triple extortion tactics, and attackers are now using the data. So with quantum computing, I don't want to scare anybody, but they are getting your data now and decrypting it later. So we need to now take extra steps because AI is ever evolving and it's just machine learning. We don't need to get nervous about it, but we also need to use AI to help us as there's malicious actors everywhere. So do you remember the pipeline when it was compromised and the password broke down? So the problem is, why is AI reactive versus predictive? So because we have legacy tools that operate reactively. So I like to explain, for just in case somebody's on this call and is not a cyber expert. Cyber used to be the last step in designing an infrastructure, but now with zero trust, we're going to put every single step will be cyber and protection. And we're going to try to use AI as predictive based behavioral to detect lateral movements, insider threats, and outside. Because just for a fact that is going to maybe astonish people, maybe not, the biggest cause of data leaks or incidents right now is still 97% humans. So we need to work on that, but let's just focus on somebody's in here and we're going to try to do what we can to detect it and implement a zero trust architecture for ransomware defense. So zero trust is a concept where we need to assume that there is a breach. The whole thing is we need to identify first the security. So we're going to do continuous authentication and then double authentication. Think about your ATM card as an example of two-step multi-factor authentication. It's one of the first ones. And we're going to micro segment our data. Kind of, if you think about it, you're in a house, right? We have a door to protect people from coming in. We have many other steps, security. We have all these steps to stop people from coming in. But when somebody's in, we want to make sure they can't just snake around. So we need to think with privileges. Does our HR people need the same privileges as our engineering people? No. And also, if somebody's no longer there, you need to make sure their privileges isn't. So my biggest step, if you take nothing away from my talk besides this, is make sure you go over the privileges at least once a year to see who actually has access to your data. And also, surprisingly, figure out where your cloud is being housed. 78% of companies don't even know where their cloud is physically. But I don't want to get into that. We don't have enough time. The third step is data access and control. So we're going to force least privilege to prevent data loss. So we're going to use the example, and hospitals all the time have this problem. They use microsegmentation to prevent ransomware from jumping in and out. But clearly, as we know from examples, I don't want to don't know where people are from. I don't want to put their hospital on blast. But The hospitals, you want to microsegment because you don't want patients' data, and that's where we have OT devices and IT devices. So how are we going to win against ransomware as a proactive defense with predictive analytics, zero trust discipline? So there's no silver bullet to integrate all the models, but we want to try to get cyber resilient as much as possible. And I always try to recommend training as well, because as you know, 97% of all the hackings that occur come from a human element of things. So the global cost of ransomware attacks, we said, was 30 billion, but it's projected to be 265 billion by 2031. And the average ransomware payment is $1.54 million. They repeat you, they get you a second time, and they come back again. So what are the pros we could learn? We could increase cyber awareness for cross sectors. I think cyber shouldn't always fall on the IT person, since any step could get you hacked. We need to make sure the device is healthy. We could try to put on a software like Splunk or Tanium to show what's going on. And I try to explain to try to keep one data set that no one touches. So you could see, is a patching issue, is it down, or is there an insider or outsider threat? So you try to use behavioral analytics to say, okay, one day somebody came in and downloaded 5 documents by 10 o'clock. Are they catching up on work? Or is it that they're deciding to take all the data and quit? So it uses what people's normal behavior, and if it sees an outlier, it will kick them out before they need to be alerted that there's a threat. So I always try to recommend using behavioral analytic AI, because that will try to catch it sooner than the human element, because nothing is worse than somebody letting you know your system is down. So we're going to invest in cyber awareness. We're going to try to do table top exercises and policy improvements. So what can we do to train AI experts and even our cyber department, because everything's evolving? Tabletop exercises to give people real life threats for resilience. And I know recently with the air traffic controllers having psychological issues from having to do incident response, cybersecurity is a very stressful job because it's 24/7 and it's a very changing environment, and it's a billion-dollar industry hacking people. So if we could do everything is try to help our cybersecurity professionals try to be more resilient. So we're going to have robust cyber insurance, because we're going to plan. And just to be clear, if you have cyber insurance and an incident does occur, you need to check to see who your cyber insurance professionals actually cover. So we're going to look at the private and public corporations. If you are hacked and you're having a ransomware, please reach out to your local law enforcement. There's a joint task force, there's FBI. You need to, I'm not saying they're going to help you maybe right away. There's other things they have to do. But in one situation I'm aware of where there was a ransomware attack, we reached out to the FBI and they just gave us the decryptor code. They already knew about the person. So a lot of times reaching out to your local law enforcement, they could either help you, and also they keep a log of what's going on. So that's just so you know. The cons, it's a rapid changing tactics. So they're getting you, we need to encrypt our data, quantum encrypt it, but I don't want to scare anybody talking about quantum computing, because I could talk about that. And we need to have, you need to be aware that deep fakes are evolving. So deep fakes are getting so good that there was that $25 million breach because someone thought they were talking to the CEO. It looked and sounded like them. It only takes 10 seconds of my appearance and my voice for you to deep fake me and have me say anything. So I try to tell companies to have an incident response plan and a playbook of what you think you're going to do. So you could have a safe word, a phrase, preferably you'd never say. You need a system of controls, because it's the push and deep fakes are becoming so realistic. I've even seen ransomware attacks where it comes from a legitimate email. They sent an invoice. It's 100% legitimate coming from the email. It was intercepted and sent by a bad user. If you pay, just to tell you, the case law is that you're liable. There was a case in Connecticut where it was intercepted, where they were paying for a house. It got intercepted and the court ruled that it was the user who's sending the money needs to confirm that it's right. It's crazy, but I'm just letting you know what the case law is. So if I were you, do not send any money online. I know we all have this problem. I've actually had somebody call and say somebody was impersonating me, and I'm like, you could have Googled it. So there's a lot going on. We're at risk. So there's the vulnerability of legacy systems, healthcare, manufacturing, utilities still run on outdated systems. But I'm trying to give you guys helpful tips to walk away since we only have 3 more minutes. So the problem with cyber insurance is, number one, you have to make sure you're using their person. And sometimes they reject a lot of the claims if you don't have proper cyber hygiene. And there's a lot of asset inventory. Ethical and legal gray areas. Should the victims pay ransomware? I think a lot of companies don't have a choice. Like they feel like they have to, and it will ruin their business. I've noticed one company just listed it on Reddit saying, hey, I was hacked. This is how much they're holding me for ransom. If you find them first, I'll pay you. We're navigating in a different time because the problem is, remember, user error is 97% of the issue. So cross-functional training to say everyone is playing a part. I know the phone is in our hand and it's very easy to click around, but we need to just use discretion because even something from a legitimate email could be intercepted. So we're going to the pros. Insider threat. Ransom as a service are available for $100. You could plug it in and use 24/7 customer support. So you could have a system. I use Splunk and Tanium. I just like them. So I just want to let everyone know I really appreciate you guys having me. I really enjoy Zero Trust and cyber awareness. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm very responsive on LinkedIn. I have a company page on LinkedIn as well. I've done 2.5 podcasts, but I talk internationally too, globally. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me and my team. I really appreciate you guys having me here.